Welcome to Return to Form. We are back in the visual mode. If you're listening to this on the podcast and you'd like to see what's going on, you can go to our YouTube, Return to Form Pod, as we are on all
streaming platforms,
handles.
HBO,
Max.
Russia,
it's called Max
today.
now.
Yeah, that's true.
Yes, so today, as the title will no doubt suggest, we are talking about the best films of 2023, the films we think you really should run and not walk towards. Do you feel it's been a good year for film?
I think it's been a very good year for film, because I think we tend to inhabit this position as naysayers, doom scrollers, doom viewers. I think we've said many times that film is so over. Maybe I think because we've had a certain attitude towards newness and new releases, I think this was one of the first years where we really wrapped our mouths round every new release of substance anyway. So every going to 2-3 film festivals helped. So we were in the kind of bleeding edge of just absorbing everything. And I think I was much more not like that I've been dismissive in the past, but I was much more open to. And so it's hard for me to say whether this year was uniquely, but I think there was a lot of interesting filmmaking this year and surprising filmmaking.
Just going to adjust the light. Carry on.
Yeah, just the light, just away. So I think there were a lot of surprises. I think. Yeah, and so I think actually writing the top 10, which is what I started doing last week, was in some senses easier and more difficult than I thought it would be. Easy because it was easy to fill it with 10. I wasn't struggling at number 7 thinking this is tapped out and done. Yeah, it was difficult in a way as well because there were so many things that didn't quite make it. There were the exclusions in there. Just you really had to kind of comb your brain to really decide which ones were the 10. It wasn't a struggle to hit 10, I think.
The nice thing is that the honourable mentions, the things that got left out, were also very good. Every film in our top 10s are films we feel personally strong and passionate about.
Yeah, really big time.
Passion is our
and we're really diverse as well. It's not like all of these films hitting the same register. They're all very, very different. So even within the top 5, there's not much that really connects them in spirit or tone or form or theme.
It's my birthday today, so
it is. Happy birthday!
Thank you, man. So we
18, so Ralph can drink tonight. He's celebrating. He's going to be buying knives and fireworks. Let's have a look at this.
I'm 29, which is wild. So this cake is a sort of Japanese cake.
Oh wow!
That my flatmate Ollie got for me.
Incredible. Wait, this is an unboxing.
It really is an unboxing.
Unboxing.
Yeah, this is like an Eric Romer box set in cake form.
Have we got layers?
We have got layers.
So film this year was much like this cake.
Yeah.
There was a kind of fruity top.
Yeah.
Sort of there's a sort of fruity top, and then there was a kind of serious but stodgy middle. Mm-hmm. Good high quality, and lots of cream pies in between that kept us going. I'm just going to dig into this.
Wow. Yes, don't be shy. Oh, I'm quite hungry actually.
Is this a mukbang? No.
I beg your pardon.
Ice cream's so good. Well, you know what mukbang is? It's like a Korean TikTok. I don't think it's Josh.
Where the woman just gets emojis and has to respond to them.
No, mukbang is predates that. So we're doing the media sphere in a wider sense now. So mukbang precedes that. It's a Korean thing. People just consume a voluminous amount of food on camera.
Oh, right.
Very rarely is it fat people. It's often conventionally attractive Korean women and sometimes men.
Bashing carbs into their face.
Bashing not strictly sort of Korean food, but maybe fast food or whatever as well.
No need to give away one of your top 10 films.
Yeah.
So the way we're going to do this is we're going to initially wax moderately lyrical about the honourable mentions, films which we thought were nearly good enough to be. So let us commence. And then just the content table of contents here. Then we will rattle through our top 10s individually, but we'll alternate to get down to that number 1 spot. And then we will the final
countdown.
The final kind of section of the show will be us giving a kind of editable recap that will become the TikTok that promotes this episode, where we sort of come up with a top 5 that we both agree to.
The party line.
The party line, exactly.
Yep.
The manifesto for what you should have been watching this year.
We'll carve it into stone, like
exactly.
Ed Miliband. Yep.
Sort of Ed Stone. Yes, exactly.
So let's talk about the honourable mentions.
Yes. Trenque Lauquen we both watched.
Wow, you jumped right in.
Yeah, Trenque Lauquen, Argentinian film by Laura Citarella. People have been really into this film. And
Cahir, this is top of Cahir's
number
list.
one.
So Cahir du Cinema, for those
Cahir
du Cinema, it's like the sort of like the sort of like big daddy of serious thick film journals, French. So Godard famously wrote for and it was edited
it's
by
like French Sight and Sound.
Serge Danet,
but
a lot more like theoretical chops.
Yeah,
like it's a really serious magazine. So each year when their top 10 comes out, it's often a bit odd. There's something a bit strange about it. They've often like celebrated directors who don't get as much of a showing. So like
was Pacification the number one last year?
It was very high up there, which didn't really get Albert Serra's Pacification. They controversially put Lynch's Twin Peaks season 3 on it like a few years ago, like 4 years ago, whatever. Because they considered it worthy as a kind of cinematic object, whatever the fuck. And this year they put Trenque Lauquen as their numero uno film. So this is a two-part Chilean, Argentine film. Argentine film, which is really the words you see it described as a kind of labyrinthine. It's a missing persons mystery. It shifts register quite a lot. So the mode it begins in is of a sort of noir missing person, very flat, very grey, very somber, and quickly the missing person story becomes missing in a way, and nested in all these other revelations. So why do you diverge from Cahir? Why do you think it's like good but not good enough? What's the
I think it's a bold and exciting pitch, but I think once you realise that it's a shaggy dog, that it doesn't go anywhere, it's neither sort of wacky enough to sustain that the meanderingness of it, nor is it like thrilling and urgent enough to just be thrilling and urgent and gripping. And the central character, she is sort of, she is bewitching, but only in contrast to everyone else who's very unbewitching on the whole.
The casting isn't particularly fantastic, I think, unfortunately. Like you said, with these long, shaggy...
I have to interrupt this. Keith is at the back. Keith. Well, he said he'd come early, but I didn't think he'd come this early.
This is several hours, so I'll fill listeners will watch this, and we might cut this out. So it's Ralph's birthday party tonight, which starts at 8 p.m. and continues after 8 p.m. Keith seems to have arrived 3.5 hours early. I'll just sit here now. We're going to have a moment of contemplation.
Still recording on all fronts?
Yeah, we're still recording.
Okay,
so
Trenque Lauquen.
Let's
wrap that up.
Continue. You were saying that so there were certain characters who were not who needed to have sufficient gravity to pull the film along, and it needed to be it did kind of lean into certain weirdnesses as the film progressed. There was an introduction of a kind of xenomorphic, strange kind of cryptozoology. There was a cryptozoological creature at the end, but the way it was introduced was not strange enough. It was quite matter of fact that there was something strange going on.
It's a bit late in the day, and I suppose this is the disadvantage of having a film that's like 4 hours long. The advantage is that you get to really be in a world for a long time, but that in itself isn't quite enough to
admirable structurally, I think, but maybe there were there were moments where it was more compelling. There's certain devices. There's a kind of mini thriller in the midst of it where they are uncovering a story of this doomed romance through these letters that are covered in hidden in books, in this kind of in a way that's quite reminiscent of Umberto Eco or something. It's kind of it's quite literary. It's interesting.
It's
that's
also
quite compelling.
Like a nicely sort of digitalish.
It's very digital, actually.
That I quite enjoyed.
Yeah, it's at times it felt a little bit like careless cinematographically, and then it would suddenly, like the final 20, which was a real slog, but it was like the best shot. Suddenly becomes, it looks like a Ray Gaddis film suddenly at the end. just in terms of these kind of
too little, too late, really, with the ending. Actually,
It was, It just I really admire it, but for me, I don't. I think there were way stronger films. And I think length and difficulty is not, doesn't earn you. I feel like Cahill have been hoodwinked a little bit by the pretensions of a film like this.
That's my feeling, yeah.
But they
was it an aggregate review? Did they was it taken from?
I assume it's like an editorial board decision.
Because an extraordinary, and it's good to have to not just do an aggregate. Because otherwise, it's good to have an idiosyncratic number one. Because I can't believe 50 critics put that as their number one. That would be insane.
No, it's good. It's good. I think if you are going to watch it, probably watch it in a cinema. I think I find it quite hard going at home because it's not insufficiently captivating. I think maybe a cinema. Also, maybe I'll give it some additional points for Fat Lionel Messi.
Oh yeah,
one of the characters, Chico, the character, he's this sullen,
chubby ginger
Argentine guy who's the driver of the main character. Just does look like a sort of a beast. We'll probably pull up a picture of Lionel Messi and Chico here at this point.
Your expectation of my editing prudence. Any other honourable mentions on your side? I have a couple.
Yeah, I think Tina Satter's Reality.
Oh yes, that would have been
which
one of
we saw at Berlinale. It was the first film we saw at Berlinale earlier in the year. I think we both raved about it at the time. There's not really much more to say, but it was really tightly made. Had some faults with certain editorial flourishes that it made towards the end, where it became quite.
It did a bit of the Foley dipping actually, which we talk about across the year. One of the kind of disadvantages of films that are often otherwise quite tense overplay their hand a little. They try too hard. We did a whole TikTok about this actually.
Yeah.
Which leads me on,
and it established Sydney Sweeney as a serious
talent. Serious talent. She's like Robert Pattinson.
She's not just a pretty.
It's How to Have Sex would actually be another. You didn't see this, but an honourable mention. It's not quite good enough to be
a British film
to be in my top 10, but it is. It's well made. It's well made. It's very moving. It's surprisingly undogmatic despite the title.
The title is so zeitgeist. It's how titles are made now. It's like Why I Hate You, or how to. It's it's all these films are kind of written popular sort of zeitgeisty literary texts that are doing really well on the shelves with kind of pop, sort of Artesimus Fege style, covers and names, and it's Why I Need to Kill You and stuff like that. I Will Destroy You was the first kind of early
Xavier Dolan's How I Killed My Mother.
So that needs to stop next year. People need to stop giving their films shit titles.
But what's in a title? Actually, quite a lot is in a title. I feel like a title is kind of a mission statement. But
Trenque Lauquen is a great title, actually.
Fantastic title, not so good film. Yeah. But good enough for us to discuss it. And I think it's a good effort. And that's what honourable mentions are for, aren't they, ultimately? Films that really have to be mentioned, but don't have that kind of seal of quality.
They don't have that,
Are we then ready to jump into...
there might be other honourable mentions.
One thing while you're thinking about that, I'll just quickly say is... a lot of films are basically released at different times, and so our top 10, just a caveat, we may review things that haven't come out yet,
or technically might have come out last year,
or technically may have come out last year. So we're we're taking a kind of, we didn't do one last year, and we're taking a bit of a broad scoop, because there are films that came out in Cannes last year.
We're overspilling the vessel slightly of the year,
which is why everyone does, by the way. Every critic's list is just
because the way films are programmed, it's really arcane and very confusing if you're not really up to date with your idea around programming and distribution, how it works. It's quite hard to date a year. It's like dating a dinosaur bone. It's actually quite difficult to do, which is why you might arguably say, well, a film like Pacification by Albert Serra kind of does feel like a sort of that 2023 film. For me, I don't think it's close enough, but it kind of does make my expanded 2023 top 10. Yeah.
But it would have been in your top 10.
Because I know you're not as hot about Albert Serra, but I love Albert Serra.
I'm not well enough briefed to even say anything about Albert Serra, but I just tried to watch Pacification and I wasn't in the mood.
It's got quite a slippery surface, but it becomes good.
What is number 10
for me
on your list?
Fuck. All right, so
we're getting into it. We're getting into the zone.
To the zone of interest. Fuck, I just lost my my list. Hold on. I did the useful thing of posting it on. So it's already been spoiled in a way because I posted about it on Twitter. But hold on. Let me zoom down. Okay, so for me, so I've switched some things around, but I think for me it will have to be. It's going to have to be Totem by Laura Aviles.
Oh yes.
Who is a Mexican filmmaker.
Yeah. This would have been one of my honourable mentions, but carry on.
Really interesting. So Totem, really intimate, sort of quite unsteady, uneasy, not close, moist even film that's quite alienating about the night of a birthday party of a man who's mortally ill, sort of stage 4, last legs, mostly seen through the eyes of his daughter. It's set in this kind of middle class house in Mexico somewhere. It's not really important. The scenography isn't really important. It's shot at this really it feels like 1:1 ratio almost. It's shot really very close immersive. Up, very immersive, very up close. Lots of obstructive blocking. It feels chaotic in a way that the child on the cusp of realizing confronting mortality would feel. Sort of something she's aware that something's wrong. But everyone is putting on a brave face. Her deeply sick father as well. It kind of reminded me of a film like Playground. Mm-hmm. Which we always gas up loads. This ability to show a story from a children's perspective, but it's something that France. Well, that's actually a Belgian film, but the Gallic world does really well because it's like Jean Vigo, Zero Par Conduite. Great film about childhood rebellion. Abel Gance, like the snowball fight scene in Napoleon. Like the French really get like.
When you say France by Bruno Dumont, you don't mean the news reading.
I didn't mention Bruno Dumont. I meant France in general.
Oh, sorry,
the French people.
But then you said Belgium. Anyway, sorry.
Only because I think Playground is a Belgian film.
Oh, Playground. Sorry. Yes, Playground, fantastic.
But also
film.
Like Bruno Dumont with Cancan, like the French.
Yeah. That's what I thought you might have been.
Yeah, they're really good at like expressing the world from a child's perspective as they're on the cusp of like encountering adult mysteries.
Whereas all the British films about children are just horrifically sentimental.
Yeah. I thought Totem was stunning. Like. Really immersive, short, tight film. 90 minutes, like perfect, no fat on it, but just like really, really captivating for me.
Beautiful. My number 10, we might breeze past it because I suspect it's probably on your list. Zone of Interest by Jonathan Glazer. Will that be coming up later? Yep. We'll discuss it when we do. Shall I just do my number 9?
Yep.
Number 9 on my list is Showing Up by Kelly Reichardt.
Okay. Didn't make my top 10.
Didn't make your top 10. So this stars. I'll go into a little bit. Well, we don't have time to go into much detail on any of these films, but we haven't done a review of this film. It's very good. It's kind of a return to form for Kelly Reichardt. I wasn't the hugest fan of First Cow. It's a film about a sculptor who is
Michelle Williams,
who's played by Michelle Williams. She has a neighbour who's also her landlord, who is a rather more perky.
And successful
artist. They have a kind of rivalry and also obviously a kind of landlord-tenant relationship, which is causes much tension. It's sort of set within an art college environment.
Real departure for Kelly Reichardt.
Yeah, and it's a sort of film about making, not filmmaking, but about making work. And
I think it's about Kelly Reichardt.
Yeah, it's like that autobiographical artist's film about artists, but it's just done in a way that's very lovable and human and sweet, and reminds me of like her really oldest work, Old Joy, and sort of some of the It
taps into that great strain of American independent filmmaking, like Sean Baker and whatever, which is deeply American.
Yeah.
But isn't leaning into the worst. It's not trying to be the new Hollywood, nor is it trying to be.
Humble indie,
like European art house filmmaking. It's its own thing, and it's really successful. And I think there's a great thing in what I really liked about the film is it's shot film.
Yes,
I think, and it's a very. I think the film works for it, and I think what it gives it this kind of homespun sculptural thing. It speaks well to the material that all these people are working with. But what I really liked about it is Kelly Reichardt is famously known for a very poised, composed camera, and it's still in present. It's still in on display in this film. But there'll be moments where she does these amazing these kind of slightly messy zooms and pans. She'll pan up to a window, then slowly kind of jump into the zoom with it a little bit, and then we'll be in the room itself. And it's like such like a embrace of the sculptural and the kind of the amateurish in a way. Like it has a sculpture approach to its own material, which I thought was really good. And I thought this kind of conflict between Michelle Williams' character and her landlord rivals friends characters, like she does really poppy, bright, fun, easy, breezy works, whereas the Michelle Williams sculptures are very factual and stark in a way. So this is obviously like it feels like a sort of like little comment on Kelly Reichardt's own filmmaking between the kind of Meeks cut off, very Spartan and alienating and dry and harsh, and then very kind of fun, which is what this film is. So maybe it feels like a departure for her, I think.
Definitely, and she's tried a lot of things out. Actually, she does have an inimitable style, but she's sort of made this sort of environmental, this sort of proto How to Blow Up a Pipeline environmental terrorism thriller. She's made sort of like social realism with Wendy and Lucy. She's an historical drama with First Cow. She has a distinctive style, a distinctive way of composing shots that's understated but very recognizable and beautiful. This feels like maybe my favorite of her films. Partly, I guess, the subject matter is just very rich and exciting. Also, like Andre 3000's in it, and he's fantastic in it.
He's really good.
Lots of good characters, lots of good casting overall.
There's also good like zany side characters as well. It's like it's sort of like it feels like a Coen film if the Coens weren't the Coens in a way. There's something about the characterization.
Hipster
Coens, it's like craft Coen.
There's
just something about these kind of like, if I when I say the Coens, I mean more like in a sense of, sort of Fargo or something, these slightly kind of zany, homespun rural characters, like the way they're introduced feels kind of Coen-esque, but in a less annoying way maybe.
What's your 9?
My 9 is, again, it's a film that I feel like just kind of slips over the barrier, but is Allensworth by James Benning.
Oh, great. Yeah, great film.
Which, I want to rep the experimental films in this, but I mean, we spoke about a time, you can go back and look at our review about it, but it's, it's classic Benning, which is a study, it's a landscape study, it's a portrait of America. It's different from the United States of America, the two United States of America he's made. It's not a funny film, it's a serious film. There's still humor in it. It's about this township in California called Allensworth, which was a majority African American neighborhoods for much of the 20th century, early 20th century in America, and it's an interesting way for him surfacing overt political concerns and issues into his filmmaking, and it's very beautiful. And like I said, it does have these little humorous moments, even despite its subject matter. I thought it was just like I really want to like gas up filmmaking that does that. Like there's because he's the last of the really active, sort of experimentalists in the American avant-garde tradition. There's some still alive, like Larry Gottheim's still alive, but these people are very old and they're not really making film anymore. But he's such a don, and he's still making film. And I thought it was extraordinary, a real like thinker. So yeah, that's why it's in my top 10.
Yeah, I thought it was a fantastic structural film.
Yeah.
It deviates slightly from the structural premise in a interesting and quite politicized way. But it's clearly a master at work. And yeah, great that his films keep getting shown.
Okay, let's take us to our 8th.
Yes, my 8th is The Sweet East by Sean Price Williams. This should probably be further up, actually, but no, there's some quite good films further up from it. So yeah, this feels like one of the most important films of the year, but I don't think it's the best film of the year. It's a very high energy, rich with caricature portrait of contemporary America and its like struggles with its past, I guess. Talia Ryder, this new young up-and-coming actor, stars in it as eventually an actor. It's a film that reflects on the filmmaking process, as we've discussed this year. Many of the best sort of indie products coming out of America have this self-reflexive quality. Yeah, it's shot in a very exciting, virile Cassavetsian fashion.
Great. I didn't see it. This is why I'm silent, because I didn't see it, and I'm really excited to see it.
Yeah. An unlucky
scheduling
clash led to Owen missing out on this film, but it won't actually be distributed in the UK. It seems Deep Into Movies are doing a screening next year, which we recommend you go to, but it's sort of being slept on, I feel, even though, and I think in certain circles it's obviously massively hyped.
When is it being screened?
At some point early next year, I think.
Okay, I'm going to go see it.
I don't know when, but yeah, make sure you do. Yes, that's my 8. What's your 8?
My 8 is Passages by Ira Sachs.
Ooh, that is on my list. So
should we save it until we encounter each other?
Do you want to go to your 7?
Yeah, so my 7 is... Okay, sorry, lots of awkward phone wrangling right now. So my 7 is...
If only we had a printer.
They're gonna be...
We need an intern.
We need a PA, actually, yeah. You're gonna find this really funny, but Sang-soo in water.
Oh, fair enough.
I'm the last person that I'd think of myself as being a Hong. So I've seen a decent amount of Hong-sang completely ridiculous filmmaker. I think often quite bad, but I thought, again, I want to gas up weird, slightly psychopathic, shooting yourself in the foot formal experiments, because the thing about In Water is that it's mostly, and it's a film about a film again, which is the big trend that we're kind of picking up, but it's shot out of focus.
Yeah,
and it's such an interesting formal device that goes back to Cocteau, and it goes back to all sorts of like traditions, like Gerhard Richter. Artistically, there's even Andy Warhol has experimented with his portraits in his E.G. Sidgwick film is mostly out of focus. I think there's like a strong there's a kind of horror in the age of digital filmmaking at the idea of something being imperfect and being out of focus. And I think someone who embraces, he can only do this once. This isn't going to represent a sea change in his filmmaking or anyone else's, but I think it was interesting for someone to make a film that for the most part has a really shallow plane of focus. So it's not out of focus, just the focus is very...
Things move in and out.
Yeah, the focus is very, very nearby to the camera. So occasionally people are in focus, but for the most part they're completely out of focus. And I think I found it really... It was a short film. It's like 80 minutes or 70 minutes long.
It's an hour, I think.
Yeah, something like that. And
it had a real accidentalness about the focus thing.
I love the amateurism. I love bold amateurism is really interesting, and I think as a reflection on this sort of slightly strained, this trio of people who are trying to shoot a film, which itself was very strained and awkward and uncertain, it kind of embraced that formally. It would have been an uninteresting film if it was shot in focus, but because it was shot out of focus, it suddenly brought it to life in a really interesting way. So that is why it's not like I've taken the Hong-sang-soo Shahada I've now converted. I'm not at all, but I'm like
heady mix of cultures.
Hong-sang Shahada, but I am now like I respect his game, and that's why it's on my top 10.
Very good. That was your number 7.
Yeah, that's my number 7.
My number 7, unfortunately, another film you haven't seen. May December by Todd Haynes.
I'm going to see it soon.
Julianne Moore and Natalie Portman. I did a review of this on the podcast, which you can listen to. There's a big debate going on at the moment about whether it's camp or whether it's melodrama. I fall more on the melodrama side of things. I think it's quite nice to view... Like
camp's dismissive, I think, as well. It makes something seem, frivolous. Like a bauble and frivolous. Whereas melodrama is like in a Circean tradition or whatever. It's got chops.
It's very sincere and like, hardwired with emotion and trauma and yet it is obviously very funny and absurd at many points. It's another film about filmmaking. It's sort of about media frenzies, moral panics. The premise is this kind of age gap, a really, really sort of criminal, literally criminal age gap romance that then blooms into something more kind of adult and committed. And loved it. Very funny, broad appeal. I wouldn't think of anyone who I wouldn't recommend it to in a way. Wow. It's like just really a great 2 hours of your life.
Your mama, your papa,
girlfriend,
everyone. Your brother, your sister,
it's not some
dentist.
pretentious eyebrow nonsense. It's
yeah.
And No, I don't think in those terms, but
no,
I would recommend that film to everyone.
Okay. Next on the list, number 6 for me.
Mm-hmm.
Inside the Yellow Cocoon Shell, Phạm Thiên An.
Blimey, well that's not on my list,
Wow.
or actually on my honourable mentions. But go off, King.
Go off, King. I thought it was excellent. I think with a film like this, a Southeast Asian film that is set mostly in the countryside and explores themes of death, and probes the kind of liminal space around the realm beyond death, and spiritualism and trauma. You immediately think Pitchpong, Virus Ethical, Lav Diaz, and so on, and it's definitely in that tradition. But I think for me it was a really alive film, extraordinarily beautiful, but more documentarian. It was like the best things about early Virus Ethical, Mysterious Object at Noon, which is much more documentarian. So there's some great dialogues in there where the main character, who's gone back to the countryside to sort of bury his sister, talks to a sort of old man who's like a sort of Viet Cong he's a Vietnam veteran, right? Like he's actually no, I've got that wrong. He was with the NVA, North Vietnamese Army, I think. Can't remember whatever. But there's a kind of documentary element to it in terms of the observation of ritual, a deep strangeness to it. So it seemed like the best things about Virus Ethical, but was not Virus Ethical. They'll use it more formally accomplished, I think, in a lot of ways. Like more. Some really interesting pans. The segments that were set in the city were extraordinary. There's some great eroticism, some strange shifting of time and place that happens. I thought it was I was completely engrossed for this very long film. It's about 3.5 hours long. So yeah, for me, it's like it scratches. It's like a film that's like sort of like laboratory formed. So whether I would go back to it in a few years, I'll probably go back if I'm going to do anything and watch a Virus Ethical film. But I do recommend it for like the Virus Ethical Southeast Asia slow cinema heads.
I would definitely say go. I would definitely say watch out for this director. Very promising.
This is a debut, I think.
I personally didn't. It got the camera prize at
Camera
as
d'Or.
well. Very very striking imagery. I just didn't like. Yeah, I sort of was with it and very excited, and then I think it kind of lost me. I kind of came back to.
Yeah, you kind of pull into and out of it. It's probably a little bit too long, to be honest. But
yeah, but an exciting first effort.
Yeah.
And what do we have next here? My 6.
Mm-hmm.
Close Your Eyes by Victor Erice. Something tells me this will be on your list, so
it is on my list. Yeah,
we will go maybe to your number 6.
Okay. It'll be my number. Well, it's Afire by Christian Petzold.
That is higher up on my list, so we will go to my number 5, which is One Fine Morning by Mia Hansen-Love.
Didn't make your
Was that
this year?
Well, here's the thing. It came out in Cannes last year.
Oh, so for me, it was I discredit it, but I'm happy to talk about it because I think in an honorary sense, it's a fucking extraordinary film.
Extraordinary film. Again, a little bit like how I felt about Kelly Reichardt's showing up. One Fine Morning felt like a moment of arrival after a with Reichardt. I said first cow with Mia Hansen-Love.
Bergman Island was
pretty disappointing. But then on the other hand, you have this amazing.
Léa Seydoux is so incredible in it.
Yeah, it's like a director understanding what they're good at, and just doing it really committedly, really beautifully. It has this amazing parallel romance versus kind of moral dilemma around not dilemma exactly, but just it's another dementia film about the difficulties of growing old while one's brain erodes, and the strains that puts on family. Meanwhile, a single woman a young widower deals with
love and parenthood because she's a single mother.
And the possibility of new love with someone who's got a whole family.
It's a very emotionally wrought film. Yeah. Very patient, very observant, without being kind of obtrusive in terms of how it's shot. With Mia Hansen has always got this. She's not like she's not going for bells and whistles formally
No.
in terms of how she shoots, but she's not boring. She's not a boring filmmaker in terms of it. She's very composed. She puts a lot, like Romer, she puts a lot of thought into objects and the kind of the way
the production
people dress.
design is maybe more striking than the cinematography.
The colours, how people dress is a lot about them. Yeah, I think it's like I thought it was great. Yeah, so spiritually, it's on my top 10 as well.
Yeah. Sorry. So the bracketing of what's permissible in a top 10 has undermined you slightly. But there we are. We both got to celebrate it. One Fine Morning by Me, Hansen Love. Fantastic performances from Melvin Pooper,
the daddy,
Pascal Gregory, and of course,
Yes,
Radu. Yes.
Okay.
Recommend. So now to your 5. What's your 5?
It would be my 4, wouldn't it?
What was your 5?
I've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've done 6.
What was your 5 though?
Wasn't that Inside the Yellow? My 5 is I did Afire. Afire.
Oh, Afire is your 5.
Yeah.
Okay. So. Well, my 4 is Afire. So let's talk about Afire.
Let's talk about Afire. Yeah.
Christian Petzold, massive return to form after quite a dodgy few years, which you wouldn't expect him to come back from.
He made some stinkers. He made Phoenix, which was stinker. Like, this is someone we covered relatively recently.
We did a whole episode.
So you can go back and listen to that episode. But there was a period in the 90s where he was really exciting and really fresh and really interesting in terms of his kind of unpicking of sort of the modern project, I suppose, and kind of Mittel Europa and exploring the kind of like the kind of like barely sublimated traumas and the historical kind of like morass of the German past and the European past as it is buried beneath kind of autobahns and service stations and supermarkets and all these things. And he was so good at kind of like creating explosive ruptures out of that.
This is amazing. I feel like you've summarized Christian Petzold's aesthetic and subject matter so many times. You've now been able to create like the perfect tweet like version of it.
Yeah. It's like
Mittel Europa supermarkets. Like you've honed it down.
I've written about it so many times. This is the thing. But whereas Afire was like such a. It's not like those themes aren't there, but like. He's formally more exciting. He takes a lot of risks. He has, for the first time, like a really interesting character. Because he never used to have like his characters were kind of like noir characters.
True, like Nina Hoss was always this like kind of uncertain, enigmatic figure rather than being.
There was no way into him, Nina Hoss, in the films. You empathised insofar as.
I'm getting a call from George Macbeth.
Oh my God, better answer
because he's hello.
You're live on LBC.
Thanks, mate. You're live on Return to Form. We're just recording an episode.
Oh shit! I'm sorry.
Are you outside? No. Are you in?
No. I can just ring you back, and I was just trying to make treads in your direction, basically.
Okay. Cool.
George, maybe if you, for the listeners at home, could you maybe give your film of the year?
It's not Trenque, which I just finished.
Sure, definitely not.
But that could be just responding to my circumstances. It's not very surprising, my friend. I think it's probably the Jude still.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Okay.
Very good. We will. Are you coming later then? Are you okay?
Yeah. I'm like half the man. I could be.
Take your time though. Just like.
But I'm gonna head via Slough, which still needs to be bombed.
Very good. All right. Well, let us know when you're en route.
I reckon like ETA-ish 8 or so.
Okay, lovely. That's perfect. All right. Lots of love, man. Forza. Bye-bye.
Pizza.
George, for listeners, has had his appendix taken out in a Vietnamese hospital and just flew from Hanoi to London.
Consenting.
Yeah.
He consented to have his been organ harvested.
So George, regular listeners to the show will know George Macbeth, probably our most regular co-host, very erudite voice on film and many other art forms.
All of them, maybe.
I feel like I'm giving a eulogy or something.
Yeah, he's still alive.
He is still alive.
He's just in Slough,
thankfully, but which is as close to death as you can get. But yes, that was George. We're going for a bit more of a parasocial vibe with this episode.
We really are. We're letting people in.
We're letting people in.
Yeah, like Christian Petzold with this film, because he gives Leon gives us a really interesting kind of difficult, troubled figure. And you put it quite well. You said, one of the great things about the film is that it kind of presents a morally ambiguous character that you can side with, and it's quite nice to have a kind of baddie goodie in a film.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I do think some of the best characters in films divide the audience in a way that doesn't put people off the film. But I've had great conversations with people who think he's an absolute prick and people who are rooting for him throughout. But yes, essentially it's a beautiful film about not being in the moment, not being like present with everyone else's like excitement or grief or and I've never really seen a film that quite manages to nail that. I think so. Showing Up has a bit of that sort of interpersonal dynamic in it.
Like Michelle Williams' character is, a bit of a stuffed shirt, and Leon's character in this is someone who, in the case of pursuing his art, which is writing, sacrifices lived pleasure in reality, and then an event happens in the course of the film which is really disruptive, like really majorly, because it's still a Petzold film. There's always like a rupture. There's a sort of psychic break in a film, which is often quite traumatizing and unexpected. It's going to happen with Petzold, but the way in which he does this, he kind of signals this thing is going to happen. Throughout the whole film, that something is on the horizon, literally, which is a forest fire. But how that's going to impact the story, we don't know. We think it's going to play a role in impacting the story, and it does. And it does it in such like a. It does it. Normally Petzold might have a car accident or there'll be an explosion, but here it's so much more strange and sudden and really surprisingly sublime. It burns through the film. It really does. It's incredible. It's really masterful. I loved it.
Psychologically, like and we don't always like center, because our whole thing is form. We don't always center like excellent storytelling, and also this like depiction of making art and failing to make art, and like using the failure of making art as a kind of strength within the work. It's like it's a kind of he's kind of comedic in a way. He's like a sort of anti-hero comedy figure. Leon, an extraordinary creation, but only strong because he's in counterpoint to these other very
really alive,
very
lucid characters.
Very well put. Yes, Afire, fantastic. So that was on your number 5 and my number 4.
Yeah.
And so, what is your number 4?
It will have to be it's a film you've not seen, which is Samsara by Lois Patiño, which again is like, I guess, reflecting a certain consideration of myself this year, which is a sort of quasi ethno documentary. About the Tibetan Book of the Dead, and it sounds like whenever I mention Samsara, the film, to people, they think, that like film that people take Kesselman to. It's like 10-15 years old.
Yes, please don't
that film.
Think that Owen is talking about that film, which wasn't even released this year.
No, exactly. This is a new release by Lois Patiño. It's set in. It has multiple locations, but
has it actually been released in this country yet? No,
it's been screened at
festivals.
LFF.
No, I know. I'm not saying it isn't a film of this year, but I'm just wondering if I can see it.
I don't think it's received distribution yet. It's really like fucking gorgeous. It's kind of a documentary, but not. It's very strange. Again, it leans in that kind of Reichardt element, but again, it's even more documentarian than that, and more documentarian than Thiên Am. It also has an extraordinary tunnel of death in the middle of it. Like, I think seeing this in a cinema where, for 5 minutes in the middle of the film, all you've got is a black screen and buzzing of flies, is an extraordinary cinematic moment. Like, it was a real. Like lifetime moment for me, because it's handled so well. It's not, you basically pass through the realm of death basically in this film, and it's handled so interestingly. It was so exciting to see it in Berlin, in the cinema in Kino International. Like one of my like all-time viewing experiences in a cinema was seeing this truly beautiful film. Really, really recommend it. So if it comes to cinemas, and it probably come, and it'll be showing it, I'm sure, like Curzon.
Yeah,
I bet it will show at Curzon Bloomsbury or somewhere like that. Like, go and see it. Even if it's on a smaller screen, go and see it, because it's a complete ride. It's really fun.
Fantastic. My number 3 is Passages, by Ira Sachs, which I think was on your list at number 6 or 7.
Yeah,
yeah.
Love.
Very good film by Ira Sachs, a director that we still haven't even watched any of his other films.
No, a Yank.
Yeah, American director. The film is set in France. It's got an amazing trio in a love triangle: Adele Exarchopoulos, Franz Rogowski, and Ben Whishaw, who has not been cast well. He's not historically been cast nearly as well as he is in this film, in our opinion.
But Franz Rogowski is cast well in this film. He's not always. He's
also not cast well in those Petzold films. I thought he was very poorly cast.
He's poorly cast in loads. He's
perfect in this film. Adele is always cast well because she's just
amazing,
very good,
incredible
good actor.
But I think Rogowski gets to lean into the thing, which is a bit of like a sort of tender brute, thin-skinned but artistic person who's like extremely rizzy and charismatic, but petulant and difficult and cold, and you get to really, I think, empathize with his thuggishness and his sensuality in this film in a really exciting way, because he is the heart of this film. It's really a Franz Rogowski film. And Adele Exarchopoulos
now.
Adele plays a great counterpoint to Agathe. She plays a great counterpoint to him, sort of like but another person who's like she gets to be wounded in a really interesting way.
And she's looking for something wild, and there's this sense of a kind of roller coaster journey. The way that love is irrational and painful, and sometimes people just want to be thrown around by it. I think it's a film that like casts into sharp relief a lot of the trade-offs of being human, being creative. I think the characters, like I was saying about Afire, are characters that somewhat divide. I mean, most people probably agree that Franz Rogowski's character's like a bit of a sociopath and a bit of a narcissist. But even so, his contours, his twists and turns, his allegiances divide audiences.
He's never brutal. He's just rough, I think, in this film.
He's just like he's sort of like self-involved, but also like it's a sort of utopian self-involvement that we can all somehow. The idea, I wouldn't want to give up too much away if you haven't seen it, but the idealism of his approach to love is like ends up being extremely cruel.
It's unmoored from the daily humdrum reality.
Exactly,
because there's a lot. This film explores really well kind of moments of it gives us the passion, but it also gives us the kind of the mundane everyday situation of living with somebody, loving somebody. And I think he's very the film Ira Sachs is very good at kind of pulling that out and kind of observing the ways in which kind of Franz Rogowski's character kind of like bashes against these things. He's a real bull in a china shop, and it's very exciting to watch this bull in his little sparkly string vest, and his little tummy and his ridiculous outfits as he's kind of thrashing around these domestic scenarios that the film sets up. And it's like it's really compelling, and it's like so beautifully made and very heartbreaking, and
fantastic film. And just the one other thing, the composition and the blocking of it is subtle but very thoughtful, and the intimate scenes are done in this way that is like you feel like such a voyeur, and it feels so like sex scenes can be.
It's the sex is very sexy, but very real.
Sex scenes can be more explicit even than this, but lack any sense of immersion.
It understands what,
and these ones are so vital, and
it understands what is sexy. It understands what is sexy actually, and it's like it in a way it's hard to watch the right way.
It draws you into
it's
what these people
real,
are feeling.
I think, and you really you feel the intensity of people through their bodily interactions. I suppose that's a very cold way of putting it, but like, it's great. It's such a good film.
Number 2 for you, or what's your number 3?
My number 3.
Oh no, you did number 3. That was
no, I didn't. No. So my number 3 is Zone of Pinterest by
Glazer. Yeah. Now we did do an extremely long review of this.
So should we just point people towards the review that we did online? We'll say again, like I still think even now it's a really extraordinary film, formally really interesting. It has its faults. Like, do I want it to be number 3 on my list? Yeah, maybe not. Like, I didn't like the ending. I didn't like the translocation to beyond the camp. I thought it was a real misstep.
Weirdly, I like that a lot, but didn't rate it as high. It's on my list at number 10, but it's not. Yeah.
I thought it was so well realized. I thought the sound design was extraordinary. I thought it was just a fantastic film. I really did. I think it will distribute in the UK widely. And I think it'll be really popular. And I think he's having his moment.
Glazer can be relied upon. He can't be relied upon to make films frequently.
No, not at all.
Definitely can be relied upon to make films interestingly. This is no exception. Really, very engaging, exciting film. It's a film that deals with the best way of putting it is very often we watch historical films about important issues, like Killers of the Flower Moon, for instance, that are made in such a painfully cliche and
dogmatic,
sort of dogmatically perfect fashion that they end up saying nothing at all, really, even though they want to say a huge amount. And Zone of Interest takes a very different and quite idiosyncratic approach to a sort of subject matter which has been tackled
the Holocaust
countless times. The Holocaust.
Yeah, it knows it has to. It cannot approach this thing direct front on.
Yeah, and it creates a unique insight via this formal approach, which is basically this kind of cool, clinical, documentary, digital rendition of some of the more humdrum aspects of the people who made the Holocaust happen. That's probably the best way of talking about it. So that's your number 3. I'll go to my number 2, which is a film you haven't seen. It's also a very short film. Is
it Pedro Costa?
It's Pedro Costa's Daughters of the Fire, which is his proof of concept short for a feature that he will hopefully make soon, next year, maybe the year after. It's a kind of musical, basically. It's a triptych. It feels like a film made on a different realm or galaxy. It's even though it's kind of evoking the mountains of Cape Verde, which are frequent. There
are characters, and sometimes an absent character for these Costa Fontaine House films.
Exactly.
We see them sometimes, and characters, emotionally refer to these places, but we don't see them loads. But they are the secondary character to the Fontaine House district.
Exactly. I think sometimes an artist will sort of gesture towards a new realm. I think there are artists. When you know an artist is moving in a new direction and trying a different style, and this feels like, okay, the next chapter of Pedro Costa's career is going to look like this. It's just very exciting, and it's just 9 minutes, and it just tells you, okay, strap in for a new. Coming off of Vitalino Varela, which is a masterpiece, he's now going in
It's Costa on coffee. He's inflamed.
Yes, very good way of putting it. I don't want to speak at too much length about a film that only lasts 9 minutes, and also we did review it on the pod in greater length. But there we are. That's my number 2. Your number 2?
Victor Erice's Close Your Eyes.
Amazing moment in LFF where we got to see new films from 2 esteemed Iberian Peninsula directors.
The Spaniards are back. The Iberians are so back.
Yes, Close Your Eyes.
31 years we wait for a new Victor Erice film, and it arrives, and it's this glistening, strange, very uncanny, really compelling, really cathartic examination of absence and loss and trauma, shot in a way that was really surprising. Wrong foots it, so it does everything that Trenque, Lauquen and Citarella is trying to do with these kind of dog legs and hairpin bends and these changes in situation. Everything she's trying to do, Victor Erice just masters, just finesses, completely fucking finesses. It's extraordinarily weird experience being in front of it. It's very odd. It feels special. It felt reverential. It's like listening to, it's like being in fucking, it's like being in a cathedral listening to an aria or a prayer or something. It's very strange. It's very reverent and odd film for me.
I loved it. It's a slow burner. It's about 3 hours. It has a sort of multiple. It has a film within a film again. Huge theme emerging. But it is really, like so many of Victor Erice's films, it's about the magic of cinema or the magic of creation in general.
Spirit of the Beehive famously hinges on a young girl watching Frankenstein.
And then Elsa has a cinema scene. Quinstry's Son is about a painter. There's something about the magic of creation and cinema and reproduction that really always appears in Victor Erice's
I
work.
always find it like funny with Victor Erice because he sits around, he doesn't make that many films. I kind of get him as a person. He really like watches a lot of films. I think he's a real cineast. He's sitting there and he'll be watching films like 15, 20 years and be like, damn, this shit's good. I need to make a film about this. This is great. And then kind of makes a fucking arresting. It's funny. It's like Martin Scorsese watches a lot of films and learns fucking nothing. Whereas Victor Erice watches a lot of films and learns everything. He learns everything. He's really.
It's a very modern film, and it's a film that takes on board like what visual culture is
now.
This
is why it's so exciting, because you think, okay, there's this grand old boy and he's 80 and he's gonna. And the film actually starts with being shot in film, and it's a historical epic kind of film. And you think, oh, it's just gonna be this. And you think, oh, interesting. This feels like this is your
which is done very well, by the way.
Done very well. And you think, oh, this is your grandma's film. And then within half an hour, we're in flat light digital, and we're in a TV studio, right? And in a kind of banal office, and you're like, whoa, okay, this guy's actually doing something. Interesting. He's actually aware of what media consumption and reception is now, and he's aware of these things.
It's one of the best final films. It's like that that Leonard Cohen album, You Want It Darker. It has the real gravitas of a veteran bowing out.
Or like Johnny Cash with the American Recordings. People at the end of their career, But he's always been great. I mean, don't know if it's his last film. He might make something else.
True.
So we're not writing him off yet.
Yeah, indeed. And that is actually out. Is it out this Friday? Or I think it's out soon.
It's out soon though.
But New Wave Films.
It's in April. It's out in April next year. Okay. Yes, it's in the UK. It's going to be out in cinemas. New Wave Films next year, which means it'll probably go to Picture House.
Yeah.
So you will be able to see this everywhere.
Yes, you will. We now come to our number one, which it will be little surprise to those of you who listen to this podcast avidly that our number one is the same film. We have a shared number one. It is Do Not
Expect Too Much
of the End
of the World
by Radu Jude. Romanian director. Again, it's a longie. It's about 3 hours.
It's a long film.
It's nominally about the production of an industrial safety film.
Films again.
But it is also about a kind of film about cab drivers from Romania in the 1980s. It's a film about the gig economy, about.
But the thing with Radu Jude is he manages to have all these little potted abouts in his films. There's always these little abouts, the way that Bad Luck Banging was about cancel culture, but it is never those things. It's never reducible to those things.
I mean, maybe my problem with Bad Luck Banging is it sort of was a bit too abouty in that regard.
Yeah,
but I take your point.
I think there's a more interesting.
You're absolutely right with regards to this film. He really achieves.
There's a more interesting thing here about what it is to watch a film, what it is to
what it is to work. Actually, it's a film about labor, but not in a. It's like there all the time, but it's not like it's not dogmatic. But it is
the ideological construction of labor. The idea of labor, I think, is what animates this film. So there's so many references. It's great because he brings symbolism back. There's great symbols. They're kind of red herrings in a lot of ways.
Great gags, great sight
amazing
jokes.
Sight gags, like the copy of Capital. But the wrong Capital.
Kenny Goldsmith's Capital.
Goldsmith's book on the table of the kind of capitalist, the Walt or delivery drivers cycling through the cemetery. Its ability to shift media really well, like
a CEO entering a Zoom call and saying one word. I mean, there's just so much. It's the kind of biting satire of our times that Ruben Östlund continually sort of fails. I mean, he kind of got it with the Square,
because he's too middle of the road.
It's genuinely satire. That's genuinely not liberal satire. That genuinely like looks things dead in the eyes.
It's smart. And what he does is he's basically doing he's deconstructing, or he's chopping and screwing with media formats. So, and elevates them to really interesting places. It's very normal now to watch a film and someone's on the phone and we get a close up of them on the phone, and we're kind of zoomed in a bit. Like I feel like Rotting in the Sun does it a lot, and it's fine.
Fuck, Rotting in the Sun.
Rotting in the Sun.
Fuck, that's my honourable mention.
Okay, we can come back to that.
Shit.
But what Radu Jude does here is he he estranges these things, and he treats them like kind of textural objects and materials that he can sculpt. We get to see Zoom calls in black and white that are kind of zoomed in a bit, so it explodes them and brings out all the fabric and material of the digital, the lossiness of digital. He's really good at punching through his source material really well. One of the the cab driver character, her she has this kind of alter ego of this kind of Andrew Tate like
loudmouth, which are in colour,
and the rest of the film is in black and white.
Except the colour film from the 80s. There's all these different like layers, and then the film that they make in the end. It's like
it's such a toy box.
And then there's this amazing bit about road accidents. I mean, it's genuinely postmodern in a way that is utterly without pretense.
It's like a postmodern film.
Yeah. It's
also in Yang or something like that.
It's a total it's a real response to our times that has none of the kind of worthy, pathetic banalities that so many films which claim to be do. A real masterpiece, and also kind of a historic film we all look back on and say this was an innovation in cinema, I feel. And Radu Jude has been working up to that in his career. This isn't something completely new for him, but I think it's
Barbarians kind of led up to this.
It's also like
it's also real fun to watch as well. I would recommend this to like. It's a great it's not like a Victor Erice. You might say, okay, it's a bit of a serious one. Kind of gird your loins for this. But I think it's so funny. I think because it refracts our own times and speaks to our own times in interesting ways. Not only saying relatability is an essential criterion for a film being good. I'm not saying that at all, quite the opposite often. But it's very relatable.
So that was our top 10. A quick honourable mention of Rotting in the Sun, just so people know that
Sebastian Silva.
It was another film about filmmaking.
Yeah, what's going on?
We never reviewed it. It came out on Mubi.
It's good.
It's pretty good. It's very funny. It's quite tragic. It's it uses the sort of, again, a bit like the Radu Jude. It kind of uses the incidentalness of the kind of like digital sphere.
It doesn't go hard enough in the way that there's like an influencer character who's a bit vapid, for example. We get to see them. But whereas Radu Jude's like, okay, that's interesting, but how can I take this a little bit further?
Radu Jude makes the vapidness sympathetic, whereas I think in Rotting in the Sun, you're meant to just find him annoying ultimately, even though he becomes the protagonist. Anyway, it's hard for us to talk about without spoiling, and I wouldn't want to spoil it, so we won't say very much. But yes, that was our top 10. I think we've got enough like bits from what we said about the films without needing to summarize it again. But should we just figure out what our aggregate?
I think we're both in agreement. It's got to be Radu Jude.
Radu Jude is number 1.
I think Victor Erice has got to be in that top 5. No.
Yeah, hold on. I've just lost my 10. Okay. Yes. So do not expect too much of the world.
Yeah.
They have to be all 5 have to be films that are in both our lists. So unfortunately, Sweet East, which I think Owen would really love, can't be in the list because he didn't see it. So there's a bit of an incidentalness to it. So Passages, I think we definitely both liked.
Would I put Passages in my top 5 though? I don't know.
Maybe not.
I'm not sure.
Afire definitely.
Okay. Victor Erice definitely.
Okay. But there's some compromises will have to happen, right?
Well, so we'll have to compromise. This is Radu Jude, so that's 3. Afire.
So we want 2 more.
Fuck.
I'm going to go out to bat for Passages.
Okay, I see your Passages and fine. I concede.
So one more. I guess it would have to be Zone of Interest.
This is like
it was at my top. It was at number 10.
Yeah, I think Zone of Interest is like if the point is we're saying these are 5 films that I think if you're going to go to the cinema next year and you think what shall I watch? I think if you go to see any of these 5 films, Patches is already distributed in cinemas, but if you're thinking of what to watch at home on a Saturday night and you want to put, it'll be on. It's on Mubi.
Did you want One Fine Morning? I think this is more of a good range though, isn't it? Zone of Interest, Close Your Eyes, Afire, Passages. Do not expect too much from them.
Yeah, and then the 6th might be One Fine Morning because it slaps.
But we have to do 5. So for the TikTok, 5 films that we think you absolutely must see from the year 2023. Number 5, Zone of Interest by Jonathan Glazer. Number 4,
Afire. No.
Number 4. Well,
Passages maybe by Ira Sachs.
Number 4, Passages by Ira Sachs. And then we'll cut to us talking about it. Number 3, Afire by Christian Petzold. Wait, no, I'll do Close Your Eyes. Number 3.
Number 3. Close Your Eyes by Victor Erice.
And then number 2, Afire by Christian Petzold.
And then number 1 will be Do Not Expect Too Much of the End of the World by Radu Jude. So that's the 5.
That's the list.
That's
we'll
your
cut
pick
that
and
together.
mix.
That will be the TikTok. That was 2023. That was Return to Form. We extend our huge gratitude to all listeners and viewers of this podcast. It's been a bumper year for us.
Yeah. Strange year.
tell your friends. Camera. I think we have a thing where we don't promote this enough, and it's a lot of work, and we're very proud of it. And I feel that there's an audience out there amongst art house film fans
who want raw, honest, and we like to think informed content about films, and without being like, I'm not to call out names, but we're not being like boring and pseudish about like sort of like, we're not like Criterion nerds. We're not, we're not talking about transfers and ratios and the quality of Blu-ray releases. We're not.
But neither are we talking about identity politics. We're the centre ground.
we are the centre ground. And the centre will hold.
We feel we have integrity in how we talk about film, and we are very passionate about keeping film going as a.
I just love the movies, man.
Yeah, and we are both filmmakers.
Did you see this thing? So the Letterboxd sort of doorstepped a load of celebrities. I'm bringing a bit of discourse into the chat. But so they Letterboxd a sort of awards ceremony of a sort of doorstepped a load of celebrities and asked celebrities to give their top 4 films historically. And it was so interesting to, and I don't want to get into a discussion about spectatorship and consumption now and kind of the collective stupefaction of the viewing public, even though I think it's happening. But it was really interesting because all of these actors gave really interesting 4s, sort of like Willem Dafoe and stuff. And I think they were calling out, Fellini, and they were calling out, Buñuel and all of these interesting directors. And then the response was this agog belief. People in the Letterboxd comments sort of saying, it's always like, these celebrities are asked about their favourite films, they always go for the most pretentious films no one's ever heard of. And it's like, I really want to fight that belief that just because a film is an art house film, has limited distribution, is important, is not enjoyable, is not, as we've seen, a film like Trenque Lauquen is aware of its own importance, and that hampers it. Whereas a film like, Radu, Jude, or someone can make something that's so funny and engaging and could be a series broken up on Netflix, and people would really enjoy this stuff. I'm not that bothered about expanding audiences. People like film or they don't. I don't really care. But I think I would hope that people don't, have the POV on like serious filmmaking. That serious filmmaking has to have no jouissance and can't be fun and can't be cathartic and emotionally riveting. Like Mia Hansen Love is emotionally riveting, or Ira Sachs. These are. I kind of want to make that point. I don't know what that is. It's just griping.
I think for me to build on that, there have been like art house par excellence films like Afire, like Passages. This isn't to denigrate them at all because we put them in our ultimate top 5. But then the films that have really like done something different in a way that goes down in film history, that marks them out as films of 2023, and not in a sort of tokenistic topical way, but just like they are responding to our image culture and doing things.
That's a crucial thing. Responding to our image culture
and doing things in like that we haven't seen before in film history. I think Zone of Interest falls into that category. I think Rotting in the Sun to an extent. I think Sweet East definitely, and I think definitely Do Not Expect Too Much of the End of the World does that, and that's probably partly why, along with it being great fun, as you said, it's our number 1 film of the year. In remarkably high spirits.
And now we will celebrate your birthday.
Yes, we will celebrate my birthday.
We're gonna
on a high.
Yeah,
the worst film of the year was Past Lives. We won't go into huge detail
Past
about
Lives,
that.
massive raspberry, 0% tomatoes.
Exactly.
Disgusting. But yeah, that kind of wraps us up, I think.
Much love.
Peace out. See you next year for more films.
See you in the cinema.
Bye.